All right, everyone. Well, welcome to the Health Professions Advising Center. Today we are featuring Mike Daly, and Mike comes to us from the University of the Pacific. He is the Assistant Director for Graduate Admissions, and he is really just looking out for us today. You are in for a treat. Mike is going to be able to give us further insights as to the whole CAS application system and this application system process applying to health professional school has a lot of critical components to it. And because Mike does this day in and day out, vets and recruits applicants to his wonderful institution, he's going to give us the inside tips and tricks on how to be a successful applicant. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Mike, and I will be here the whole time. As you saw with the sign up sheet, there are going to, hopefully we can have time for some Q&A as well. And again, thank you for joining us, and I'll let you do your thing.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the very, very kind introduction. Yes, as you mentioned, I do this on a very regular basis. My day is usually filled with having individual Zoom chats with prospective students to our programs, but I am always happy to share my experience, my knowledge with students wherever they may be. And so I'm really happy to have this opportunity to speak with you students here at Cal State San Bernardino. Again, whether you are looking to go specifically into a program that we may offer at University of the Pacific, or just looking to take that next step in order to get into the health care profession that you feel calling for, I would definitely like to share my experience and my advice from doing this over the past several years with you. And so I have a PowerPoint, a few slides to share with you that I'd like to go over. And then I will leave some time at the end of our workshop here for any kind of questions that you may have. So let me get that started. Give me just a second here. Alrighty. So first, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try something I've never done before, which is give a poll. If I can find the right button here while I'm sharing my screen. Let's see. You know what? I can't, and that's fine. I will just ask a couple of check-in questions, and you can feel free to use the chat to enter your answer, just a very short answer. And Crystal, if you would be able to monitor the chat and kind of let me know kind of what kind of responses we're getting, that would be great. So the check-in question here is, how do you feel right now about the idea of going to graduate school? Maybe just enter a couple of words or a very short phrase, whether it's positive, whether it's not so positive. I'm just curious to know how you're feeling right now about the idea of going to grad school. So let's take a few seconds to enter your responses in the chat here. Okay, we've got excited. That's a good one. Scary. Okay, that's another good one. You know, that's nothing bad about feeling a little bit scared, a little bit anxious about this next step in your education journey. Bit nervous. Okay, that's very, very common. Very, very common. Excited, nervous, very positive. Okay, good. We're getting some, different types of responses here. Nervous. Okay, so I'm seeing, folks are at mostly two ends of the spectrum, and that again is very natural, very normal, very okay. No matter where you're at in, how close you are to applying to or getting admitted to graduate school, whether it's 4 years away, whether it's, in a few months, it's very normal and very okay to be feeling all of those sensations about going to graduate school. Graduate school has a lot of myths and misconceptions that surround it for folks who haven't been there, which is pretty much, I would expect, everybody here who's joining us. And so it's natural, and what I try to do in my role is try to dispel those myths and misconceptions while giving prospective graduate students like yourself kind of realistic expectations of what to expect and how to prepare for getting into this next phase of your education journey successfully and hopefully with as little stress as possible. So let's move forward after that little check-in. And I'd like to share with you our agenda, kind of some of the main topics that I'll be talking to you about this afternoon. First is a pre-application to-do list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's some main points that you might want to keep in mind as you're starting to prepare for your graduate school journey. Also, I want to give you a little bit of a peek behind the graduate admissions office door. Usually when you are applying to the program, and especially after you submitted your application to your graduate program, there's a big mystery about what may be happening. How are they looking at your application? What's important to them, and how are they making their decisions amongst all of the great applications that they're receiving? And how can you maybe get your applications to stand out for the rest? And then we're also going to look at some screenshots of different pages within the CAS application. The CAS application is used by a great variety or a great number of graduate health programs. And so we're going to take a look at the main parts of that application. And I'm going to share with you some tips, some tricks, some advice on how you can make sure that you have done everything that you need to do to present the strongest possible application using that application. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some general application tips and tricks. Actually, this might be a little bit of out of order of what the final slides are, but these are the topics that we're going to be choosing or talking about. So actually, let's start with the to-do list. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it is a starting point. Again, no matter where you're at in your journey for preparing for graduate school, it's important that you take a personal gap analysis of where you're at and where you want to be in order to get into that graduate program that you're seeking for yourself. So questions that you're going to want to review, personal questions that you're going to want to review are what knowledge, what classes do you need to have in order to be ready for that program? So let's say, for example, you're a psychology major now, and you want to get into a nursing program. What are some of the prerequisite courses that you need to fulfill the basic admission requirements for being fully considered for that program? That's one question. What kind of education do you need? If you're looking at pursuing a doctoral program, can you go straight from your bachelor's degree into a doctoral program? Or is there going to be something in the middle, like a post-bac program, or maybe even a master's degree program that you have to take in advance? Also, how much time is it going to take for you to get all of those things prepared? Are you looking at starting within the next year? If so, how many classes do you still need to take? Is it possible for you to add some additional courses into your coursework to be ready to start in a year? And also, very important, how much money is it going to cost? And how are you planning to finance this next stage of your application journey? What kind of financial aid sources might be available to you at the graduate level? Graduates financial aid and undergraduate financial aid can look very different. So this is something that you need to kind of start looking into for yourself, no matter where it is that you're planning to go. And so the next one would be, my advice would be to start your graduate program research as early as possible. And this can start as early as your freshman year as an undergraduate. Doesn't mean you necessarily need to, but it's always helpful to start thinking about your next step and how you're going to get there and have that next step be something that's going to help you get into your healthcare career in the most direct, easiest, and hopefully least costly way possible. And what you can do to do that is start doing some general research, of course, getting some advice from your pre-health advisor there at San Bernardino. They've got great resources, great experience, and great knowledge about all the different pathways that you might be able to take from where you're at right now to where you're going to be, and maybe giving you some important leads on the programs that may be the best next step for you. Of course, you're going to need to do some of the research for yourself because whatever advice that I or any of your advisors give you may not necessarily always be the best one for you. You're the only one who is going to know what is best for you and what suits your style, what kind of location you're going to be most successful in, enjoy as much as possible, and also what design of the program or what features the program should have in order for you to get the most out of it and be as well prepared as possible for getting into your healthcare career. One of the things that I always recommend to future graduate students is to actively engage with those programs that you feel may be a good match for you, that you feel will, be the best in the best position to help you get into that future career for yourself. How do you actively engage? There's a number of ways, but two of the main ones are to find out who the admission advisor is for that graduate program that you're looking to join sometime in the future, even if it's 2, 3, 4 years from now. It's always good to connect with that person. And usually there's always a person who is there to kind of receive, inquiries from prospective students like yourself. I am the main point of contact, or at least initial point of contact, for all students who are interested in applying to all of our School of Health Science programs. And so I'm a connection point for those who are looking to learn more about those programs and also to help them navigate the process of finding out more information that they want to in their own personal research and starting and getting through the application process. Most graduate programs, they have a person who has similar roles and responsibilities as myself. So seek out those people. Usually their contact information can pretty easily be found from the program's websites. But if you have any questions, do the inquiry that you need to get to that person who can help you. Also, another important way to engage with your best fit programs is to attend any information sessions that they may be offering. Most programs, especially starting with COVID and even continuing until now, most of their information sessions are offered virtually. And so no matter where they are, no matter where you are, you're able to join in and hear directly from usually faculty and or admissions representatives from those programs to learn a lot more fine detail about what those programs are. And this information usually goes well above and beyond anything that you might be able to read about from the program's website or other information that you may be able to pick up. Also, it's something that is recognized during the application process is about the level of engagement that you have had with the program pre-application. We call that, and you probably have heard about this before, called demonstrated interest. And so this is kind of a qualified or a quality type of aspect or kind of component to your application that doesn't necessarily have a specific weight to it, but when it comes time to reviewing your application, it is going to be noticed if you have had a prior engagement or connections with that program that you are now applying for. Whether you have visited the campus and that visit has been registered in their system, or if you've had a number of different communications with their application advisors or faculty members, or attended their information sessions. The more engagement that you've had with the program, the more you're going to learn about it, and you're going to have a better sense of whether that program is in fact a good fit for you. And also, you're going to be known to that program, and you're going to have some extra kind of bonus points added to your application because you've demonstrated that you have taken the initiative to learn more about the program yourself and to kind of introduce yourself to that program before the application process. And so they're going to remember and they're going to take notice of that when it comes time to reviewing your application amongst all of the others that they're going to be reviewing for that intake. So going behind the admissions office door, I give you a little bit of sneak preview of what they're looking for in terms of demonstrating interest already. But basically, every program is slightly different in how they determine who gets accepted to a specific graduate program. But I would say overall, and this may have some slight variations from program to program, but basically, the general primary admission goal for most graduate health programs is that they're looking to assemble a diverse group of well-qualified applicants who will be able to successfully complete their program. That is one of the main things that they are trying to accomplish. They would be doing you a great disservice if they were to let you in to a program that they felt that you, as an applicant, did not have the good personal skills and background experience to do well in the program, or that they did not have their own adequate resources to help you become successful and complete their program. So that's really their primary admission goal. They want to get students in who have a very high chance of success in completing the program and hopefully completing it on time. So how do they accomplish this? Most of the programs that I'm familiar with, both public and private, they usually go through a holistic admissions review process. This means that they review and they give a certain weight to every part of the application that you're submitting. And that includes transcripts as well as letters of recommendation, your personal statement, and any interview that may be required as a part of the admission process. And again, depending on the program and what they consider to be the most important determinant of future success and good fit for the program, certain components of that application are going to have more weights than others. But I would say overall, the most important parts of your application, the ones that are going to carry the most weight, again, no surprise, your grades. A lot of times, your cumulative GPA from your undergraduate studies is definitely counted, but I would say also it's more important, or there is a greater weight that usually is placed upon what you've done in your last 60 units or your last 2 years of college work. This is a stronger indication of who you are as an applicant now versus who you were coming straight out of high school, whether it was first into community college or if it was straight into Cal State San Bernardino or another four-year institution. Who you are right now or who you are at the last 2 years of your undergraduate studies is a much stronger indication of how focused you are on your studies, how good you are at your time management skills and doing well in your classes, and other factors. Also, they take usually a separate look at the GPA that you've acquired from your prerequisite courses, whatever those may be for the program. That is an indication of how strong your foundation for that advanced, more focused study is going to be going into their program. So wrapping up, it's cumulative GPA, probably out of the three, the least important or has the least weight, your last 60 units of college coursework, and then your your prerequisite GPA. So all of those things matter to different levels according to different programs. And if you're wondering what carries the most weight out of those three, that's a good opportunity, or it's a good question for you to ask those admission advisors that you're reaching out to those schools that you're interested in applying to. Also, of course, those letters of recommendation are going to be really important. Certain schools are going to require you to get recommendations from certain people as a part of the process. One, I would say some programs may require two recommendations, others 3 or 4, depending on what your program is that you're looking at. But I would say in general, they're going to be looking for academic resources or academic recommenders, a professor or an advisor who is in good position to speak to your qualities as a student. How much do you participate in class? How focused are you? How much do you look for doing extra work or getting extra learning for yourself? these kinds of things. And then another source may be a work source. If you've done internships or if you've done any kind of work experience, especially related to the field in which you were applying to go into as a graduate program, those carry a lot of weight. So as you're looking at your best fit schools or those schools that you would like to apply to in the future, take a good look at their admission requirements, including their recommendation requirements, and see who they are going to be requesting recommendations from, and start thinking early who those recommenders are going to be for you, and positioning yourself well with those recommenders so that if they don't know you as well as you would like them to, that's your opportunity to get them to know you better than they do now. Also, your personal statement is going to carry a lot of weight. Number one, it is a way that you can show how well you can communicate written wise. And it also provides you an opportunity to show the unique person that you are. What are your unique lived experiences? What are some of the accomplishments? What are some of the challenges or obstacles you've faced and hopefully been able to overcome throughout your life or specifically during your college journey? And these types of things. Some schools will have very specific prompts about what they would like you to write about. Others may say, tell us about yourself, and leave it up to you about what format or what content you're going to choose to write about yourself. But again, the personal statement is one of the more important ways. It has one of the more heavier weights in their consideration because it does give you that opportunity to stand up and above or distinguish yourself from other applicants. And you shouldn't be too concerned about how you stack up against other applicants in terms of accomplishments or anything. Just tell your story. Tell the graduate admissions committee how you got to this point and how you feel that you were well positioned to not only do well in this program, but also to serve in this healthcare career that you're seeking for yourself. And then also, usually interviews are a pretty common part of a graduate healthcare program admission process. Usually not every student who applies, however, is granted an interview, since obviously these are very time consuming and they may require special considerations to be offered one. But if you are offered an interview, that's a very, very good sign. It basically means that they really, really like you and they want to have just one more reason to say yes, rather than to knock you out of consideration. So look at any kind of interview opportunity, certainly an interview invitation, as a great opportunity to go above and expand what you've already shared on your application. So again, kind of going back to the earlier point I made, the level and the quality of your engagement with the program pre-application is going to matter when it comes down to a final admission decision. Again, there's a lot of students with great GPAs, with a great resume, great recommendations, and a great personal statement. But some of the small details are the things that may make the difference between whether a very competitive program accepts you and another student. And they'll be in a better position to say yes to you if they know more about you and they have been able to see demonstration of your interest in the program. So going into some tips and tricks before we get into some screenshots of the CAS application, I want to say one of the things that I see happen at least a few times every application cycle is that students do not get considered for one of our programs because simply they have not read the instructions on the application as carefully as they've needed to, nor have they sought out answers to the questions that they had. So it's very, very important, and this is, probably goes without saying, but it's really vital in order to, put your application out there and be considered to read the instructions, all of the instructions on every single page as carefully as you possibly can. And if you have any questions, if you have even a small doubt, reach out to the admissions advisor for that program and get clarification so that you know with strong confidence that you're providing the information or you're answering the question correctly as they're requiring you to. And then also on the CAS application, you're going to find on almost every page, there's a link to an applicant help center. And this is a link that can help answer a lot of frequently asked questions that applicants will have about those specific areas of the application. Make full use of that if you need to, if there is anything that you're not 100% sure about, that you need to get confirmation about before you finally submit your application. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you want to do some personal gap analysis and also create a checklist for yourself. Take a look once you've opened a CAS application account. Take a look at all of the different information that is going to be asked of you during that application, and make a checklist, maybe even on a spreadsheet if that's the way you organize the work that you do, of what kind of information you need to collect from somewhere else and put onto that. Some sections, they're very easy. All the information you need is what lies in your head already. Others you have to get from another source, like a transcript, for example. So anyway, take a good overview of that CAS application once you have opened it, and make a checklist of things that you need to collect and submit onto that, just so you're as organized as possible and you don't leave anything out, and you stay on track with whatever deadline that you're needing to meet for that. Again, set deadlines as part of that checklist. And also keep in mind that there is a verification process that happens with the CAS application, where all of the information that you've submitted, including your transcripts and your recommendation letters, all of that is verified or goes through a verification process by CAS application staff. And only after your application has been verified will your graduate admission program you're applying to be able to start reviewing that. Ideally, you would like to have everything ready and submitted, I would say, at least 2 weeks before the published deadline for your program. And the reason for that is because the verification process, depending on the time of year, can take CAS application staff up to 2 weeks to get to your application, depending on the volume of applications that are submitted at that time. And as you get closer to the published deadline, you can definitely count on the volume of applications being submitted to be going up, as everybody's trying to beat that deadline. So give yourself as much time for CAS staff to work on and verify your application, ideally before that published deadline. Also, get a diversity of recommenders, especially if it's not specifically stated on the admission requirements of who you need to submit as a recommender. If they give you freedom to get any recommenders you want, still try to provide them a diversity, an academic advisor, a professor, ideally in the area of study that you're looking to go into or something that you've majored in, and at least one outside source, an intern supervisor or a work supervisor, ideally within something related to your major, or somebody that you may have done community or volunteer work, especially in the healthcare field. Is the more diversity that they have, the greater perspective that they have on you as an applicant before they have a chance to meet you through an interview process, if that is going to be part of it. And then also, as you're working on your personal statement, as you're going through different drafts, try to call upon at least 2 to 3 trusted people that you believe will give you honest feedback about the draft that you're working on. And you can usually get some good ideas by getting that feedback as you're going along and working towards your final draft that you're going to submit. Again, just having that outside perspective, I think, helps you a little bit more to see if you are communicating what you want to communicate to other people as clearly and as effectively as possible. And then going back to the demonstrated interest, attend as many virtual events or information sessions as you possibly can. You're going to be learning a lot more about that program through those information sessions than you would just by going through, viewing the website information. And then also try to schedule Zoom chat. Doesn't need to be just one, but schedule Zoom chats with your admission advisor so you can learn more about the program, even above and beyond the information session. But also you can maybe get some inside tips and tricks on what makes a successful applicant to that particular program. And then follow each of these to have as smooth of an application process as possible. So here's a few screenshots for those of you who haven't yet set up a CAS application. And there are many, many variations of the CAS application. There is AT-CAS, there is OT-CAS, there is SID-CAS, there is CASPA. There's probably 8 or 9 different variations, depending on what type of graduate healthcare program that you're applying for. But all of them basically have a very similar format, which is what you'll see here. This is a typical dashboard screen that you'll see once you have created your CAS account and also selected which schools that you're going to be applying for through the CAS application. So there's personal information, and there are 6 individual components to that section. There's academic history. There's 3 sections to that. There's supporting information, and there could be 5, or there could be a little bit more depending on the program. And then there's program materials. It might seem, especially for those who you haven't set up a CAS application yet or gone through it, it might seem that the ones that have more sections will take the most time. Actually, that's probably the opposite is probably true. Personal information, for example, that has the most parts to it, but this is all information that you already have in your head. It's things about your address, your contact information, your background, your demographic information, other things that you already know. You don't have to look up anywhere else. So I always usually advise students who were starting the CAS application and want to crank out as much of it in as short a time as possible, or at least get a good running start. Start with personal information first. It's the quickest and easiest place, so you can see you've got at least a quarter of the application done in a very short period of time. And one of the good things about the CAS application, you can log on, log off, and do as little or as much at a given point of time as you possibly can. So there's a lot of flexibility in adding information to it within whatever time you have to be able to devote to it. Academic history is going to be probably take you the most time. And I say that because this is where you're going to be entering all of the course information that you've taken from the time you've finished high school until the present time. You're going to be required to enter every course, every grade, every semester. And so this is going to take some time. So again, this is where going into the application when you first open it and seeing all the different parts and getting a sense of how much time is going to be required to do each section. That's going to help you plan it out and also create a timeline for when you want to try to complete each section at a given time or over a given period of time. So again, here's where the personal information section is. Once you click on that, this shows you the different types of information that you're going to be providing to CAS. And this is really all the same information that you likely have put on your Cal State San Bernardino application. So it's really nothing new, and it's all information that you have already in your head, and you can probably complete it, I would say, in 30 minutes or less in most cases. This is where we have our program materials. Again, this part is going to look different, slightly different at least, according to which school that you're applying to. Each school that you've listed on your CAS application is going to require at least slightly different things. And so this section, the program materials, is where you're going to see some of those differences. So usually there are some subfolders such as the home, which usually gives you an overview of the program that you're applying to at that specific school. And then there are maybe a separate subsection called questions. These are specific questions that the program wants to hear about, and they may differ from school to school. And then there are documents. These are things like your resume, if you have one or if it's being required, or your personal statement or other documents of explanation and things along those lines. And then there's another one titled prerequisites that has a listing of the courses that you're going to need to have taken or at least have in progress at the time that you apply. College attended, the academic history, this is where I mentioned earlier that it may take you the bulk of your time for the application, where you're listing all of the different colleges that you've attended. Even if you took a summer course at a community college, that information is going to need to be entered, and you're going to have to request an official transcript from that school to be submitted for your application. And one important note on transcripts is that it's really, really vital that this is where the reading instructions comes in very important. You're going to be required to have your official transcripts that you're requesting to be sent to CAS, not to the graduate school or graduate program that you're applying to. If you send them to your graduate school, that is going to grind your application to a halt, and it's going to remain incomplete. The reason for that is because CAS has been contracted by the program that you're applying to be the primary recipient of all information required to apply to that program. And they need to have every piece of information, including the transcripts, including the recommendation letters, sent to them so that they can first verify that information before it gets sent to your graduate admissions office. So transcripts must be sent to CAS. I cannot underline and emphasize that enough. And that is probably the number one reason why applications from really good applicants remain incomplete and they are not able to be reviewed for that program that they're applying to. And that is, in my mind, is tragic, because they will have, in most cases, they will have missed the opportunity to apply to that program, or they have to wait to apply to that program another year. Nobody wants that, especially after all of the time and preparation that you have put into preparing for this graduate program. So read those instructions very carefully. If you have any questions, always ask, and make sure that you have done everything in the exact way that you're being asked to make sure that your application is in fact complete. Supporting information, again, this may be different from school to school, but this is basically other information that the program may be asking for you in terms of evaluation. This could be the recommendation letters. If you have certain experiences, this is maybe someplace where you can transfer some of the information on your resume onto the CAS application. If the program that you're applying to requires a certain minimum number of clinical hours or clinical or observation hours, this is where you would enter that. And then achievements, these could be research that you've done. It could be presentations that you've done at a conference. It could be honors or awards that you've received. It could be a wide variety of things. And any conferences that you've attended, especially those that are related to the program that you're applying for, this is also where you can include that information. So in conclusion, for at least my part of the presentation here, I always try to have our applicants or prospective applicants try to make sure that they're coming into applying to a graduate program with a "how can I" mindset. A lot of times, for whatever reasons, an undergraduate experience may not have been the perfect experience, or you may not have done everything as well as you possibly could have for reasons that may be completely out of your control. And so looking at maybe the acceptance rate of a program you'd really like to get into, or looking at the minimum GPA of a program you'd really like to to get into, you may look at your own accomplishments and think like, well, there's probably no way they're going to accept me. Never, never, never have that kind of mindset. There are almost always ways, if your GPA is not perfect, ways that you can improve it between where you're at now and where you want to be. So always try to find a mindset where you can develop a how can I rather than I can't mindset. How I can't mindset is a stopping point. You're basically creating a barrier for yourself that doesn't necessarily need to be there. But if you create a how can I mindset, you're opening up to any kind of possibility that you may be able to have. And it may not necessarily be things that you yourself have 100% control over, but if you are to seek out advice and support and recommendations for those from those people who are in maybe a different, slightly different position or have a slightly different perspective, they may be able to offer solutions for how you can get to that goal that you're setting for yourself. So that's always, I think, a very strong recommendation that I try to have. Make sure that everybody who's going into a graduate program, especially if you're a first generation college student, and this is foreign territory to you, as it was to me at one point, I always try to have you go into this new adventure with a how can I do this, not rather than I can't, or I can't because of this reason. Fortunately, I've been able to provide solutions or workarounds to a lot of different people get into some great programs just because I was able to spend the time to look at where they're at, where they want to be, and try to create some steps that they need to take in order to fix anything that may not be perfect within their academic record. So I know that I'm not the only one who does that. So definitely ask those questions. If you're not sure if you're in the right spot or if you have the right preparation, find out from an expert like your pre-health advising office there, how you might be able to get in that spot that you want to be in for yourself. And of course, with that, make full use of all of the academic and career resources that you have available there at San Bernardino. They are there to help you. They want to help you, and they're very eager to see you go on to bigger and better things for yourself. So with that, I am wrapping up my part. And if anybody would like to, connect with me, feel free to take a screenshot or write down my contact information here. The QR code is actually a link to my Calendly page. I'd be happy to speak with any of you on a formal or informal basis about where you're at and where you would like to be. And I'm happy to share any of my experience and knowledge about that with you to help you get on to that next stage, whether it's coming to a UOP graduate program or not. I just love helping anybody who has the courage to seek out and ask for help. So with that, I would like to open up the floor with whatever remaining time that we have. With any questions that there might be, feel free to utilize the chat, or if you're feeling really brave, unmute your microphone and turn on your camera and share your question with us. And I encourage you to do that because a lot of times the question that you have may be a question that will help another student with a certain or similar situation that they are wanting to, or maybe it's a question that they hadn't thought of that's going to be relevant to helping them as well. So the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. If we could please give Mike a round of applause. I'm going to give you a little reaction here. That was so informative, and it also helped inform my advising practices and things I'll be sure to share with students. Students, if you feel up to it, feel free to, as Mike mentioned, place your question in the chat, and or you can send it privately if you're most comfortable that way. But I do have questions here that students submitted before entering our session today.
Yes.
And so the first question is, what can they do to assess and see how they fit a mission of an institution, and how will they know without forcing it or saying what they think the admissions counselor or director wants to hear, to ensure that they're making the right decision for themselves?
Right. That's a really, really good question. And I think, the mission and the values of any particular institution or any particular program, these are written words. But of course, you as the prospective student, you want to verify and confirm that you not only understand what those are in real terms and how they relate directly to you, um, but you can't only do that from the written word, in my opinion. So again, that's another very good reason to seek out a connection with that graduate program that you're looking to apply to, either through attending their information sessions and hearing directly from their admission staff and or faculty, and also connecting with that admission advisor so you can get a better sense of what that mission is and how you feel you may be connected to it or not. A lot of times also I recommend that students, reach out to the program directly, kind of as a test a little bit of that institution or of that program. The speed and the personalness, if I can create a word, of which they reply to your inquiries, I think is a good indication of how they may treat you as a student in the future. A lot of schools, and I've tested this out myself by doing some secret shopping here and there, um, is try to see how quickly they reply to my inquiries as a prospective student, and also to see if it's like a robo email or if it's something that somebody has actually read my message and replied directly to my questions in a personal way. Um, you know, does it take them a week to do that? Does it take them a day? Does it, do they ever reply? Those are all important indicators, at least at the initial stage, of telling me how, number one, how easy it may be to really submit a strong application where I know what I'm doing and what they're looking for and how to position myself, and also how I may be treated during that application process, which is very, very nerve-wracking for most students, even in the best of situations. The last thing that you want to do is to spend dozens of hours on putting together the perfect application, and then feeling like it falls into a black hole and you never know how it's being treated or whether it's being looked at or anything like that. You want to have a good sense of where it is that you may be deciding to spend the next few years of your life and no small amount of money in preparing your future for your future healthcare career.
Thank you. That was
Mhm.
extremely helpful in giving the students some autonomy as well, so they can see that they have a say in this process, and is the institution a fit for them, and are there resources there in place to ensure that they're going to be properly supported. So that was extremely helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, there's a question in the chat, from a couple questions in the chat. First one being, do you think the GRE, this is actually a really good question, do you think the GRE would be beneficial for applying to post-grad programs, or is it more necessary for the individuals to basically focus, individuals with a lower GPA? So I'm guessing GRE versus GPA.
Right. Very good question. And you may have noticed that I intentionally left out the GRE from my list of important things in the application review process. As I'm sure most people are aware, the GRE and other types of graduate placement exams are becoming less and less utilized by graduate programs. Um, there's a lot of reasons for that, many of which I'm personally in favor of doing away with, simply because those standardized placement tests, they do have flaws. There are some biases, I believe, in them that don't necessarily tell the true story. Plus, when you take them, it is 1 3 hour, 4 hour period of time in your life. And depending on how you are a peer during that test will dictate the outcome of that test. Some people are naturally not good test takers, and that is not the true or best reflection of who they are as students. And so, those and other reasons are why a lot of schools, a lot of programs are doing away with those placement tests. But even the ones who are keeping them, they're putting it much lower or they're giving it a much lower weight in the overall review process than they may have several years ago when, controversies around these were less. Um, and how this the schools that and the programs that are still utilizing these tests, they're mainly using them as a confirmation of the knowledge that students have, comparing it to their transcripts. Not all schools grade and not all professors grade in the same way, but they use the standardized placement test to see how close in proximity the grades to the scores in certain areas are. And that's simply it. It's a confirmation. It's not something that is going to override the GPA necessarily, unless there's a huge gap between the GRE score and the GPA, vice versa.
Gotcha. So Mike, what you're saying is, I guess what the student is actually asking is, in the case of if you were someone who has a lower GPA, the GRE could help demonstrate that you are, give me lack of a better word, competent in areas that they assess or deem appropriate to persist
Right.
within that health professional school.
Yeah, I would agree with that. However, the GPA is, in every case that I know about, the GPA is going to carry the heavier weight. But if students may have had a bump in the road or a slow start in their college life, grade-wise, then there are usually opportunities for them to put those grades or that dip that may have occurred in the context in which it should be read when they're reviewing the transcript. We all know that there are many, many things outside of school that may happen during the course of a college experience that may have significant effect on the performance that you have during that time. And so if that happens to be the case, there's usually an opportunity to share that information in confidence, of course, with the admissions committee or the admissions advisor so that they can be reading that transcript in the proper context in which it should be read and understand what was behind those things. And maybe if it was something where, let's say, for example, there was an undiagnosed learning disability, that can be something that's put into a separate statement showing that the student, found out after the fact and, sought out the necessary accommodations, and that will show the improvement in grades once those accommodations were provided for.
Got it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
The next question is how to write a good personal statement of purpose and how to stand out in the application process.
Okay. That's a really good question, and it will depend. It will depend greatly on the specific program that you're applying to, and this is yet another good reason that you will want to reach out to the admissions advisor for that program. They're in the best position to help guide you on what it is that the admissions committee is looking for, which is not to say that you should try to pander to the admissions committee and tell them what you think they want to hear. Always, always, always be your most authentic self in your personal statement. The admissions committee, they read hundreds of applications and personal statements every year, and they can tell in a second whether you're pandering to them or being your authentic self. So always, always be your authentic self in your writing. But make sure that you are writing about the things that they are specifically wanting to hear about.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, with that, we are at time. And right now, 12 to 1 is our coyote hour. So students have an opportunity to attend these sessions without it getting in the way of taking their coursework. And so I definitely want to make sure that I'm also being mindful of your time. And we're getting some thank yous in the chat. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.